On today's episode of Monday Maps, we're going to be focusing on the Ukraine war. First, I'll be mapping out Russian-occupied regions, and then I'll show you how to visualize where current fighting is taking place. As always, you can get the project files over on my Patreon page, link in the video description. All right, let's get our initial base map set up here. I'm going to zoom in on the Ukraine, and I will click on Create Map Comp. Next, for the imagery profile, I'm going to go with Esri, and if you click on Edit here, you can choose the actual style. I'm going to go with World Shaded Relief, and that will get our project set up. Now I'm going to finalize one frame here. Okay, there we go. Now I want to draw out some of the admin boundaries of the countries. So for this, I am going to download some global data sets from a source called Natural Earth. And you can do that directly in the GeoLayers panel by this little plus button. If you go to Download Features, you have all these data sets. So I'm going to grab countries, and I will also grab country boundary lines. Now, be aware that the way they provide this data, Natural Earth specifically, they provide it in what's called de facto. So they will basically draw out these borders based on who controls the situation on the ground. So it will show Crimea as part of Russia and not Ukraine. So if you want to manually switch some of these polygons, what you can do is download the disputed areas global data set, and then you can merge specific disputed areas with other polygons. Because for example, if I just search for Ukraine and download this as a sovereign country, it's going to show it without Crimea. So what you could do is go grab Crimea and then click on merge features, and then you have your customized polygon. You can actually also go to Natural Earth's website, and there's a whole collection of POV data sets, basically the POV of specific countries. All right, now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I can just double click on the Ukraine to zoom right in, and now I will zoom out just a bit, and I'm going to draw out the boundary lines of the countries here. So I only want to draw out the boundaries that are showing up in my map comp view. So with this feature collection selected, I can just filter out the view, and if I open this up, it will have that filtered. And now I can just grab all of these. I like to manually grab all of these because when you draw them out, if you just grab the feature collection, sometimes it won't just draw out the filtered view. It will draw out like all the features. And before I draw them out, I want to select the layer style. So I'm going to go with this thin black line here, and I'm going to click on Edit Styles, and I'm going to change some of this. Like I want the opacity to be around 55, and I'd actually like the stroke width to be like 2 or 3. Now I'll click Apply, and now I can draw these out. Actually, one more thing, if I go back up here, I want to make sure that this is going to be one layer, and it's going to be set to auto stroke width. Okay, so everything's looking good here. Now I will draw this out on my map comp. Okay, this is looking good. Now I'll just rename this, call it borders. Now if you're interested in getting rid of some of these features here, you can just simply like double click and hit delete, or you can open up, let me undo that. If you open this up, it'll bring you directly to the shape group, so you can just turn the visibility of this off, and you can always have it there. So if you want to bring it back at any point, like this one, let's double click and find this one. It's right here, and it even says right here, verify. Okay, now I want to label all of these countries in the map comp view here. So first I need to create a new label template. So I'm going to go to the label template drop-down menu and then click on Add Template. And this will bring up this new composition here. If I toggle on transparency, you can see there's 2 layers. We have a new text element and the label anchor point. Now I want to style this, so I'll go to the properties panel. I am going to center up this. And in fact, if I go to window align, I might want to center it all the way up in this composition, because when this is drawn out, it will be drawn out to the center of this label anchor point. So now I'll go back to properties panel. I'm going to change the font here to something like spectral regular, and I'm going to turn it to all caps, and I'll bring the kerning way up because this is all smushed together. There we go, 300 is looking good. Now, one quick pro tip, when you're drawing out labels via a label template, you have this label anchor point, and if you open up Effect Controls, you'll notice you have these 3 checkboxes: Scale with Map, Rotate along path. So if you're drawing out a lot of labels and you want them to automatically have one of these settings checked, you need to check it in the label template. So if I select all of these and then I turn on 3D for both of these layers, now it will draw every label out with these settings already checked. Okay, now I can come back here. Actually, let me go back to the project panel, and I need to rename this. So I'm going to call this country, and I'll go back to the GeoLayers panel. And now I need to actually grab the map features, so the countries. So I'll go to the countries feature collection. I'll open it up, and I need to filter it out by the view here. And I'm going to zoom it in just a little bit more because we don't need all these countries. Something like this. Filter it out again. And now I'll just manually grab all of these. And with my label template selected, I will label these features. All right, now here in the timeline, you can see I have all of these new labels, but they're looking a little too similar. Like we want the Ukraine to be much bigger than all of the rest, and we're gonna need to like manually place some of these. Like we want Moldova to be a little bit smaller. So what you can do, if you're happy with the general size, you can go ahead and just manually change some of these. Like Moldova, you can hit S for scale. Let's scale this down to something like 75. And then you can see Bosnia and Herzegovina. If you open this up and then toggle transparency, what you can do is you can just really quickly format this. And then you have things like the placement of Hungary right here. I want to move this around, so I'll go grab this one. And in the effect controls panel, I can start to move this with this pixel offset. So we just want to move it over here. And now with Ukraine, what I can do is double click, jump in here. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to just go to the properties panel, and I'm going to bring this way up. Something like 75, and we'll see how this looks. Okay, that's looking great. Now, one thing you'll notice is that the Russia label is nowhere to be found, and that's because GeoLayers will generally draw out the labels in the center area of a polygon, which for Russia is going to be way off here to the right. In fact, you can see it over here. It's all the way over here. So we can actually unpin this and move it, or we can go back and grab the Russia polygon right here. And what you can do is if you click on feature properties, it's going to show you right here where the label template is going to be drawn out. So it's right here. So I could just manually move this as well. So I can grab it and move it all the way to right here, click apply, and now I can draw this out. And there we go. Now we've got our label. We'll go ahead and delete the old label. Hey, so if you're enjoying this tutorial, you might want to check out my latest course, which is called GeoLayers War, Battlemaps Masterclass. It's all about the art of conflict mapping. There's a link in the description. Go check it out. Okay, my base map is looking really good. Now I'm ready to start mapping out some of the conflict areas. So where can I find this specific geodata? I'm going to show you 3 places in particular that I like to go. First is the Institute for the Study of War. You can go to understandingwar.org and you can check out their publications. They profile, I'm pretty sure, all ongoing conflicts, and they release these publications, and I think they're on a daily basis. For example, you can see here, Russian Offensive Campaign Assessment. You can download this as a PDF, and they have maps that they put together. And if you're a journalist, you can actually join their mailing list, and they will send you the geospatial data files. I think they send shape files. And I'm not quite clear if you have to be a journalist to get access to those, because I've sent in a request just using my standard Gmail address, and they kind of didn't respond. But I know a couple of people that actually work for big publications, and they get access to these shapefiles. Next up is liveuamap.com, and this is a really cool project started by 2 developers, I think back in like 2014, and they essentially have like these AI crawlers that crawl social media profiles and then draw the geodata from there, and then they basically have humans that will check this and then publish it. And they have a couple of different options. I mean, you can just check out the map here, but if you want to get the pro version, you can actually download the geodata, and they even have a really high-end premium option where you can connect via API and get all of these files as well. Now, the third and final option here is a free option from this group called Project Owl. And if you go to this GitHub page here, you can go to UA Control Map Backups. And they've been, I think, mapping this since it looks like December of 2022, and they have KMZ files on a daily basis. So if you scroll all the way down, you can see here are some of the latest entries here. And if you click on one, you can download it right here by clicking on Download Raw File. Now I'll jump back into Adobe After Effects, and you can see what this looks like. I just bring in this KMZ file, and you can see in the preview here, we have a ton of different data points. And if I open this up, we have things like the front line, we have the Ukrainian incursion front line, and then we have various polygons of these areas where Russia has taken control. Now for this specific visual, I want to show Russian-controlled territories. So I'm going to grab all of the polygons that I can here that I know Russia is currently controlling. And I'm going to take all these polygons and click on this right here, Merge Features. So I get this one nice big polygon shape here. And it adds it right over here. It's called Feature Merged. Now if I scroll down, you'll also notice that we have some point data of all of these different things right here. It's really, really cool. And actually, if you scroll all the way down, you'll start to get into some previous months and years. So they have just a plethora of data from which you can pull here. There you go. January 2023. We have different Russian and Ukrainian positions here. Okay, now that I've got this new map feature, I want to visualize it on the map. So I first need to tell GeoLayers how I want this to look. So I do that by creating a new shape layer style up here. So I click on Add Style, and I'm going to turn off the fill, and I want to do essentially like a red outline, just a red outer stroke, and then I want to have repeating red lines in the fill here, and then I want those to be moving. So I'm just going to activate the stroke here and turn off Use Fill Color, and I'm just going to set this custom red, like super red, essentially as red as you can get. And I'm going to bring the width down to something like 5, and I'll click Apply. And now with this selected, I will go ahead and draw this out, and voila, now we have our new shape here. Now one thing that's kind of annoying is that we have all these little scraps of shapes here in the middle. So a good way to get rid of these is to scroll down and look at your new feature here and open it up, go to Contents, and then here you have Feature Merged. You're going to have multiple different little shape groups here. Open up this first one, and as you click on these, you'll be able to see, if you have this selected, you're going to be able to see which little item you're selecting here. And usually the first one is going to be your main polygon, and then all the bottom ones, on the ones on the bottom, are going to be your inner ones. So there we go. I can just delete all of those. Okay, now for my red repeating lines, I'm going to first draw a mat, because I'm going to need a mat to like basically crop out these repeating lines once I create them. So to draw out a mat, you just go grab a solid fill color. So I'll just grab this white color, and with the feature merge selected, I will draw this out, and voila, now we have a little solid here that we can use as a mat, and I'll rename this mat. Now for the repeating lines, I'm going to deselect everything, go to Window, select Effects and Presets, and then I'm going to do a keyword search for repeating lines. There we go. And now to create these, you can simply double click, and now we've got some repeating lines. And if you look in the Effect Controls panel, this is where you can customize them. So right here, I will change the color. We're going to go to super duper red. We'll bring the line width down to 5, and I'm going to set the line rotation to something like -45. And now I can just position this over my shape, and maybe bring the gap down to something like 25. And then I'm going to bump up the copies to 100. And now what I can do is I can just do a little animation. So I can, bring these, actually we need to make these much bigger so that they're in these little polygons as well. So we need to bring the line length up to something like 1,000. A little bit more just to make sure everything's covered. Now I can call this repeating lines. And I'll bring it all the way down here, and here we have our mat. So now I'm going to toggle switches and modes, and we're going to set the track mat to that mat, and now it should mask it out. Now, very, very important step, we still need to connect this to our map. So I'm going to connect it to the map comp anchor, and then I'm going to toggle 3D on, and now we have some repeating lines that will follow along. Now to animate these, to bring them to life, you just need to simply keyframe them, P for position. We just add a keyframe here and then go over here, and now we can just manually move it. All right, this is looking really great. Now there's one more thing I'd like to visualize on my map, and that is these areas right here. You see these little circles, and if you look in the legend, this is visualizing significant fighting in the past 24 hours. So I want to basically, georeference this map and use it to create these circles on my own map. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I can just save this image to my downloads as a PDF, go back to Adobe After Effects, and now I'm going to go and grab this image and just bring it straight in. And now I'm going to quickly georeference this. And if you've never seen my georeferencing tutorials, you're just going to line it straight up with your map. So the first thing that you do is you move your anchor point to a reference area where you want to line it up with your underlying GeoLayers base map. I'm going to use this little point where the border of Moldova meets Romania. So right here. Actually, it'd probably be better to do something over here, maybe Crimea, because this is where we actually want to be pulling this information. So let's just line it up right here. Now you hit T for opacity. You bring your opacity down to like 50 so you can see the underlying base map. Now I'm going to line up Crimea here, right where our anchor point is, using the selection tool. So I'm going to line this up right here. Now I will switch to the scale tool and I'm going to scale it up, and hopefully it might be close to being aligned here. Okay, unfortunately it is not using the same projection. You can see we're at about the same scale, but it's quite far off. So what you want to do now is grab the puppet pin tool, which is right here. Make sure you have your image layer selected. Click on the puppet pin tool and add a puppet pin right to where your anchor point is. And now you'll want to start to line this up. And we're only going to be focusing on this region here. So I can start to puppet pin tool this. And actually, I might be able to get this a little bit closer first via scale and rotation first. So before we start to do this, let's try to scale this down. All right, that might be as close as we can get. All right, now I'll go back and I'm just going to start to puppet pin the edges here. So I'll grab the edge of our image here in the region and I'm going to line it up with the underlying GeoLayers map. And we'll grab this here. We want to get this lined up as close as possible. Once again, I said if you're on the mailing list for Institute of the Study of War, you'll probably have access to all of this as actual shapefiles. And actually, all I really need to do is georeference these areas where the fighting was taking place, just to make sure it's right on the front line here. Okay, that's lined up pretty close. And now I'm just going to go ahead and parent this image to my map comp and toggle on 3D so that it doesn't fall out of sync. And now to actually georeference these locations of intense fighting, I'm going to deselect the image and I'm going to go grab the pen tool so that we can just draw out a shape. And now I'm going to simply draw out a little vertex or vertices right where these are located. And I'm going to switch to the selection tool and grab it as I go along and then switch back to the pen tool. And the reason I'm doing this is so I can draw just little points and not a path along here. So I'll just run through this real quick. And this is going to allow me to very nicely and very neatly create a map feature out of this. Okay, so now I have this new shape layer with these points. I'll rename it Significant Fighting. And what's cool about this is now in the shape contents, we have just these individual points. But if I click on the layer and I go back to the GeoLayers panel and then click on the plus icon and say Feature from Layer, it's going to create a new feature collection with all of these. And that's really cool because now I'll be able to quickly label these. So now I just essentially need to create a new label template. I don't need the text. I am going to go to composition settings, and we're going to change this to a 1000 by 1000 pixel square. I'll deselect, go to effects and presets, and now I'm going to search for the map marker effect here and just double click to create a new map marker. And now we've got this cool little thing here. So now how do we design this? Well, we want this marker to be a lot smaller, something like 25. And I want the stroke to be much thinner as well. We'll make the stroke like 4 pixels. And I want the fill to be black and the stroke to be red, 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 red. And last but not least, I want to go to the animation duration and change that to 3 seconds, just to make it a little bit more slow. Now in the project panel, I will rename this and call it Fighting Areas. Now I'll go back to my GeoLayers panel and select the Fighting Areas template, and I'll grab all of these new shapes, and now I will label these features. Now I'll turn off our georeferenced image and our original like little shape layer where we georeferenced these points. And actually you should probably connect that to the map comp anchor just for reference later if you want to use it later. And there we go. Now I have my map animation that is visualizing the Russian occupied territory as well as the most intense fighting areas within the last 24 hours. So now that I've got this base map designed, I'm going to be able to just download this data later and then quickly relabel these areas. Now, as a last step, you should probably go down and add the sources here, whether you're using ISW or whether you're using live UA-map, add it right down here in the attribution. Okay, so there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Once again, the project files are available over on my Patreon page. And if you want to learn more about the art of conflict mapping, go check out my GeoLayers War Battlemaps Masterclass. All the links are down in the video description. See you in the next one.